You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. It is April, Sisters in Loss, and it is Fertility Awareness Month. 1 week is not enough to recognize those who have been diagnosed infertile and have yet to get pregnant, stay pregnant, and bring a baby home. This month, we are recognizing our sisters who have fertility conditions like PCOS, endometriosis, or unexplained infertility. Welcome to episode 43 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. This is a bonus episode to end Fertility Awareness Month as well as National Infertility Awareness Week. In today's episode, we have Heather and Dimitri Wilson, who lost their daughter Kennedy to stillbirth, and they share in this episode how the first year has been since starting their nonprofit called Kennedy's Angel Gowns in January 2017. You may remember Heather. She was my first guest on the Sisters in Loss podcast, and she shared her stillbirth story of her daughter Kennedy in episode 2. In this episode, Heather and Dimitri share how running a nonprofit centered around loss has affected their relationship, and now, after 1 year and 4 months into starting their nonprofit and dealing with loss every day and how it impacted them both individually and as a couple. We also talk about their second annual Angel Ball that is taking place tomorrow, Saturday, April 28th, 2018, and what they're looking to do to transform the Hampton Roads area. Here are Dimitri and Heather Wilson. Well, thank you, Heather and Dimitri, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited.
Well, thank you all. If you all have listened to the podcast, Heather shared her stillbirth story in episode 2, and now we have her husband on, and I want them to talk about their foundation, Kennedy's Angel Gown. So you all talk about your foundation and what you're doing. You all are a year and some change into launching your foundation, so I want you all to talk about just what you're doing with your foundation and your upcoming events.
So we're still fairly new, but what our organization focuses on is being a voice and breaking the silence that's often surrounding infertility, stillbirth, infant loss. We also make burial gowns, so that's where we get the name. Well, our daughter's name was Kennedy, and we make burial gowns for boys and girls. And we also purchase Cuddle Cots for local hospitals. We hope to begin to provide them for hospitals, not just locally, but all across the United States. But right now, we're focusing on the Hampton Roads area.
So what is a Cuddle Cot? Kind of explain what that is and how it provides services for families who are grieving, for stillbirth families.
So a Cuddle Cot is somewhat of a cooling device, and what it does is it allows the family, it kind of gives the gift of time. It allows the family up to 5 more days with their children, with their babies. And so with that being said, the baby does not have to go to the morgue, can stay right there in the hospital room with the family.
Awesome. So how many Cuddle Cots have you all been able to provide the Hampton Roads area so far?
So far, we've been able to place 2 Cuddle Cots in local hospitals in Virginia Beach,
Awesome.
One in Norfolk General and one in Centera Lee, with the third one that we hope to raise enough money for through our foundation and the 2 events we have scheduled for this year, the run and obviously the end of this month, the ball. We want to place the next one in Centera Princess Anne Hospital. That's the goal.
Awesome. So let's talk about the Angel Ball. Tell us about the ball, what you hope to raise from the ball, and all the details.
Well, we hope to raise enough money. When we do any event, our goal is to at least be able to purchase a Cuddle Cot and then still have money left over to help with funeral costs if need be. So the Cuddle Cots cost about, I would say, around $3,500. But we always give the hospitals $5,000 so that for upkeep upkeep, maintenance, and sanitation reasons, we always give $5,000. So that's our goal is at least $5,000. But of course, with the help of the silent auction and other donors, we hope to raise more than the $5,000 at the ball. This year's Angel Ball is at the Virginia Aquarium, and we're definitely looking forward to that. We have, it's on April 28th. It starts at 7 p.m. So what we do is we honor the babies. We honor the families, the strength of the families that have been through this tragedy. And then we kind of let our hair down and have a good time as well. We do a silent auction. We have a DJ, dinner, dancing. We have some artists that will be present. And we just try to have a really good night while honoring the babies and the legacy they've left behind.
Awesome. So I'll make sure I link to tickets to her ball. And if you all want to donate to Kennedy's Angel Gowns, I'll make sure I link to that as well in the show notes. So let's talk about how, since you all have started your foundation, how it has impacted you all as a couple and individually, since you are pretty much talking to grieving families every day, every week. It's nonstop. So how has that affected you all and your relationship together as you're grieving and just bringing back up those feelings again? And then how's it affected you all individually?
So I guess as a couple, I would say we've had to learn to read each other and read where we are emotionally. Most of the time, I would say it's me going by myself, but there are a lot of times where, and especially if he's off work, he goes with me, and I don't have to go alone because it's not easy. Definitely re-triggers your trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely puts you in a place of remembering yourself standing in the shoes of those families. Oftentimes when we visit families, they're still holding their babies.
Mm.
So it's tough.
It is. I'm the type of person that kind of compartmentalize things. I don't like to voice a lot of my feelings. So what it has allowed me to do, obviously, realize how many men need someone to talk to also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's allowed me to give them a voice, speak with them about what they're going through, which also helps me because I can reflect on what I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
Get an opportunity to talk about some things that I never talked about in the past. So we're helping each other.
Right. Which is awesome. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to ask you all that question, because I know it triggers. I can imagine getting phone calls at 2 and 3 a.m. About a gown that you have to ship out next day, or finding friends that are locally. I remember you posted something on Facebook recently about a couple that you all knew personally that went through this same situation, and you all had to relive it with people that you knew directly. So I know it impacts us, definitely impacts you individually.
The ones that we leave at the hospital, some of them we'll hear back from, and some we don't. But with the families that we've had, 2 families that were actually close to us that it's happened to, and if you count even miscarriage, the number gets increasingly higher. But we had to attend the funeral. We had to check on our friends because they're like family to us. So it's hard. It's not easy. Not that I thought it ever would be, but I didn't realize how often this happens.
Right.
Even in let's bring it back to when it first happened to me. I didn't know anyone it had happened to, so I felt alone. And so now that we are a year and 4 months in, we really see how often it happens. The other day, literally Thursday, I was at the hospital and visiting my own friend, and the nurse let me know that there had been 4 that day, same floor, 4 babies.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just makes you sick to the pit of your stomach. And every time it just re-triggers. It's just, you feel for that family and you feel for everything they're going through and then what they're about to go through, because it doesn't just stop there. It's literally a process throughout life to try and live without a family member that you grew inside of you. No words.
No words at all. So how do you all deal with those triggers? Are you able to give words of comfort to those families that you talk to?
I think if I was brutally honest, I think I go to a different place, and I kind of self-consciously push it to the back of my mind, and I think that's the only way I'm able to get through it. And then when I leave, that's when I kind of deal with it. I always have to tell him and talk about it. That's like the first thing. Like, I'm leaving the hospital now. Can I just process this with you? And then my support groups, I lean on my support groups a lot. It's funny because even your best friends, if they haven't been through this, they can't understand it. So it's the lost mom community that is really like you. We could sit in a room and have hour-long conversations just because we've been through this and walk these shoes. So I try to, shopping, honestly, I know it's sad, but shopping is therapeutic for me. Sewing is therapeutic for me, only I don't get to do it as much as I wish I could, because this does take up so much of our time to keep the nonprofit going, and there's so many sides to it, and there's so much going on with it all year round. It's really there's not a slow time. We were told by Centera that they have 27 stillbirths a month. That's the average number. That's almost one a day. Norfolk General.
And that's just at Norfolk General.
Hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And they said March was a horrible month for them. So when I spoke to one of the nurses, saw her on a Monday, she said since Thursday she had only seen one live baby that was assigned to her case. Yeah. So it's rough.
That is rough.
Happens a lot more, and I that's the end. The thing for me is just, why does this happen so often? So I try to research a lot, and I don't have the answers, but I know it's a higher rate in African Americans. That is the only research I can find.
Yeah, it definitely is a higher rate in African Americans, and it's all about us being empowered and having a voice when going through pregnancy, or even before pregnancy, going through and then up until. But yeah, it has happened so much more in Black women and with Black couples that it is alarming, and it's something that I want to find an answer to as well. So I definitely understand.
We won't stop until we do.
No, we won't. We won't. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. So since I have both of you all here, so what's one thing that you learned the most about your relationship after your loss of Kennedy?
What would you say would be?
I'm gonna let you start.
I can say, if I were to bring you back to day one thing I noticed is that where we were always happy and just joking all of the time, after that day, there were moments of silence, like uncomfortable silence. It came out of nowhere, but I think we just didn't have words. And it wasn't that it was always ridiculously uncomfortable. It was just our new norm. And that we had a new norm as a couple. We had to learn how to just really depend on each other, because not even our parents could understand what we went through. So we were the only two. And we had to understand each other even when we weren't speaking. When I went through a lot of depression and anxiety, and I just felt bad for him, like, you didn't sign up for this.
Right, for better and for worse, right?
I did it. I felt awful, like, and if I was having a good day and he was having a bad day, or vice versa, we had to just understand that and learn how to work through that, because you're not always going to have the same feelings at the same time. So
right.
And I'm me carrying her, I think I've had a lot more bad days than him. And also the way he grieves, the way men grieve. At first it frustrated me, to be honest, because it just seemed like he was in a better I think, when I think back, I think that he really got it out at the funeral, and I was in shock.
Right.
Yeah. So it took a really long time for me to get to the place where he was at, to where he was kind of getting back to somewhat of a normal. It took me a really, really long time. And sometimes I think I was jealous of that. I'd be like, how is he around here whistling and skipping? I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't he here? And I had to realize that he didn't have to be where I was on the journey.
Right.
That we would get to certain points at different places, and that was okay.
Right. How about you, Dimitri? What you learned the most about your relationship?
That even through the worst of times, you can still stand strong and come and make it through it and get back up. So they were, not in times were bad. I don't want to say bad, but as far as our relationship, that's what you were going through, not knowing what to say. It was trying times because of the loss. But you just learn through strength and leaning on each other that you can get back to where you were. Mm-hmm. So it taught you how to persevere and move forward and still stay strong and in love with where we are now.
And even I remember her, obviously we were full terms, so we had 3 baby showers later. We had a room complete with her whole nursery set up, walls painted, everything washed and dressed. Everything was just
same as me. I know.
Yeah. And so for me, I think, well, when my family came home from the hospital, they were like, hide everything. And it's like, don't touch anything. And so for me, it was that door stays shut, no one goes in there. Well, I thought that door stayed shut and no one went in there. And until recently, I learned that was a place of solace for him, that he would go in there and it was peaceful for him. And for me, that room stayed shut for almost a year. Wow. That door stayed shut.
Wow.
So, yeah, different, and like we grieved different. It was like that room was shut off. I couldn't deal with what was in that room. Where for him, he felt closer to his daughter.
Wow. And I can relate to you on that. When we got back home when I got home from the hospital, when I lost my son, my family completely cleared the room out and put everything in the closet. So when I got home and I went in the room, I was expecting to see the crib and everything set up just for my personal comfort, kind of very similar to Dimitri. Like, I just wanted to go in there. I just wanted to be near where he should have been, but everything was already in the closet. And that took me a while to get to that place where I was like, I just needed a piece of him somewhere. Yeah. So I understand completely how both of you all grieve differently and understand. That's why I always ask that question to couples, because we all have our own little ways of grieving and going through the journey together. So what encouraging words can you give a couple out there that has recently experienced a loss or who is battling infertility?
So I would say to the mom and the dad or the family in general who's experienced a loss, to take your time with grief. Don't let anyone rush you. You do it at your own pace. A lot of people like to give advice, and they don't know because they haven't been through it. So I would say you take it at your own pace. You take it second by second, because grief is funny. Mm-hmm. Grief will catch you. It's not when you think you're supposed to be sad. It will always catch you off guard. So I think it's very important to be patient with yourself. And it's going to be a journey. So take it easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. The way you're feeling is how you're feeling. And to find a tribe, find those who have been through it that you can relate to, because it helps to just pick up the phone and just bounce it off of someone who's been there, because they truly do understand. What would you say to the dads?
I guess the toughest thing is when you're going through it, after the months go on, you wonder when you're going to get over it, when you can get back to normal. And I guess my thing is, once I learned to accept that I'll never get over it. It's not a bad thing to never get over it, because Kennedy was my daughter and she always will be. And I accept that, and that scar in my heart is hers. She's a part of me. And I don't want to ever get over her. She'll always be there. And I think once you accept that, it'll help moving forward somewhat easier.
So where can we find out more about the Angel Ball, and then give us your website and social media handles?
Okay. So you can find out more information about the Angel Ball on our website, which is www.kennedysangelgowns.org. We are on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. and we are also on Twitter. All three were under Kennedy's Angel Gowns. You can also purchase tickets on Eventzilla.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather and Dimitri, for being on the podcast. And we will chat later. I'll definitely see you at the Angel Ball.
All right. I can't wait to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericandmcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.